Well, hi there. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at Module 55, which introduces us to some practice related to costs. So in this first practice problem, we're given Alicia's Apple Pies is a roadside business, and Alicia must pay $9 in rent each day. So the first thing I'm observing is that that's going to be the fixed cost in this problem, is the rent, because it's just dependent on her operating. It's not dependent on how many units she produces. We're also going to notice that in addition, it costs her $1 to make the first pie, and each subsequent pie is 50 cents more, which means the second one's $1.50, and the third one is 50% more than that, which is $2.25, and so on. And it says calculate her costs, MC, VC, AFC, AVC, and ATC, as the pie output goes from 0 to 6. So we're going to do that here, and we're going to need a little calculator to be able to do some of the 50% increases every time, and to be able to do some of the division that we're going to need to do when we do the averages. So I'm going to zoom just a shade in here, zoom in, hopefully you can see that, and then we're going to calculate first just or rather not calculate, but the quantity of total product. So count kind of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, because it says to go through 6 units. Then we're going to do marginal cost, and we'll kind of work out from there to see what the other ones look like. Now, at the 0th unit, there isn't a marginal cost, but it gives us that the marginal cost of the first unit is $1. We know the second one's $1.50. We're also given that. And as I said at the beginning, 50% more of that is 75 cents, so it's $2.25. Now, at this point, it's a little bit easier if we go 225 times 1.5, because it's 50% larger. So $3.38 for the fourth one, 338 times 1.5 equals $5.06, 506 times 1.5 equals 759. So now I have my marginal cost values for each of the first 6 units. Now I want to calculate my variable cost. And one thing to observe about variable cost is that actually the change in variable cost is the marginal cost. In other words, as you increase the units of output that you're producing, you're incurring more and more and more variable cost. If you figure out what's the change of that variable cost for each unit that you're producing, that's actually the marginal cost. Translation, we can use these marginal costs and actually sum them and of going across to find the variables. Or another way to think about it would be we could use that to also figure out the total costs, which we'll look at in just a second. So for the 0 product, there's not going to be any variable cost because we're not producing any units of output. And then what we're going to do is notice the first unit, well, that's $1 because that's the only units that we're producing. But once we've made 2 units, the first unit cost us $1, the second was $1.50. So we sum those and we find that the variable cost for the second unit, the total variable cost, is $2.50. Again, it wouldn't necessarily be correct to say the variable cost of the second unit, but it would be saying like when you're producing 2 units, your total variable is $2.50. And then the change in between these is actually that marginal amount. So the third unit would be $4.75 total variable cost because we're adding the $2.25 to the $2.50 we already had. Now, at this point, some of these get a little bit difficult to do. This one, next one's going to be $4.75 plus $3.38. So that's going to be $8 and, oops, not zero, $8.13. So that's 75 cents plus 38 gives us $8.13. Then we do $5.06 plus $8.13. Again, that's why we've got the calculator if we need it. 8 plus 5 is 13, and then 6 plus 13 is 19. So it's going to be $13.19. Then this last one is going to be $20, and then we add 19 and 59, and we're going to find that that's 60 plus 20 minus 2 is 78. So we have $19.78. Again, keep that little calculator handy if some of these calculations are kind of tricky for us. But again, what we're doing is just summing basically these marginals to create the variable. And we know that the fixed cost is $9 throughout the entire range. And we didn't need to put that on here. It's not one of the listed ones, but I went ahead and put it here because the next one we're going to need is actually total cost. And in order to figure out the average total cost, we're actually going to go ahead and do the total cost here. So the total cost of producing 0 units is 9, then 10, and I'm just adding 9 to this 250 every single time. So that's, or to the 250, 9 to 475 is 1375. Then there's 1713, 2219, and then That would be 28.78. So this is the total cost of producing each of these quantities of output. And I'm going to use these values, the variable, the fixed, and the total, to find the averages for these. So the average fixed cost, the average variable cost, and the average total cost. Now, for average fixed cost, it's just the fixed cost divided by the units of output. There's not going to be one for the 0th unit because 9 divided by 0 is an undefined number. 9 divided by 1, on the other hand, is just 9. And so we have 9 fixed costs divided by the 1 unit. Then we have 9 divided by 2, that's $4.50. 9 divided by 3 is $3. 9 divided by 4 is $2.25. 9 divided by 5, I'm having a brain fart. 9 divided by 5 is 1.8, so $1.80. And then 9 divided by 6 is $1.50. So what we're seeing here is that there's a decrease in the average fixed cost throughout the entire range. That's because we're spreading out that fixed cost over more units of output. Now let's take a look at the average variable cost. So we're taking the variable cost, $1, dividing by the 1. Again, there's not going to be a 0th one here, but $1 divided by 1 is $1. Then we take the next one, the variable cost, $2.50, and divide it by 2, and that's just going to be $1.25. Now we're going to take the third one, $4.75, and divide by 3. So $4.75 divided by 3 is $1.58. Then we're going to do $8.13 divided by 4. Divided by 4 is $2.03. Then we're going to do $13.19 divided by 5 equals $2.64. Let me focus this just a shade here. We'll see if this wants to behave. I'm not sure that it's going to work. Yeah, a little bit better. And then last variable cost of $19.78 divided by, divided by 6 equals $3.30. And so now we have these average variables. Now, they aren't really behaving the way that maybe we would want with that U shape a little bit, but that's okay because these numbers actually for variable cost are not really behaving the way that we kind of would expect either. But what we can use is now that we have average fixed and average variable, we know that if we add those two numbers together, they equal the average total because the fixed cost plus the variable cost has to equal the total cost. So when we added these numbers across, they had to sum together. When we add these numbers across, they're going to have to sum together. So there's not going to be one here. The average total cost here is $10. And we can also figure this out, like 9 plus 1 is 10, but we can also take the total cost and divide it by the total product, right? It's total cost divided by the quantity of output. So this next one, $5.75. But again, let's take a look and verify that that actually is true. $11.50 divided by 2 equals $5.75. So that kind of is another way that we could check that we're actually doing this correctly. If we did $13.75 divided by 3, obviously it's easier to do 3 plus $1.58 because that's $4.58 than it is to bust out our calculator. $4, and now we've got, I'm adding these two numbers together, right? Fixed plus the variable, so that's 28. Then 180 plus 264, well, that's 444. And then last is going to be $4.80. And so now we've done marginal cost, variable cost, average fixed, average variable, average total cost. So I'm just kind of checking those off that I've done all of those. Now, what's Alicia's minimum cost output? So this was part A. Woo, what a doozy. Part B, her minimum cost output is just where MC or where ATC is at its lowest value. And so part B just is 428. That's the smallest value, so that corresponds with Q4. Part C, using your ATC values, indicate the range where spreading dominates and where diminishing returns dominates. And really, this is just saying like, well, in this range, the spreading, because this is where we're spreading out the fixed cost and it's causing basically the average cost to fall. And then from this range beyond, this is where the diminishing effect kind of dominates because that's where the average cost starts to rise again. Because we know that average total cost is going to do one of these, a U shape. And it's basically saying when you have this minimum point, the reason that it's going down is you're spreading out the fixed cost over more and more units. And that's dominating the effect of the diminishing returns, which is going to cause the average cost to start rising again. Now, part D and E just say, explain why making one more pi lowers the average when the output is less than that minimum cost output, and why making one more pi raises the average when it's greater than the minimum cost output. And what that's basically saying for part D is if the marginal cost is bigger than the average, actually, when it's lower than the average. So this is actually for part D, if the marginal cost is less than the average total cost, then average total cost will decrease. So it's basically saying, like, if the nth unit that you're producing, if the cost of that unit, the marginal cost, is less than the average, then it's going to pull the average down. Part E, though, is saying if that marginal cost is greater than the average total cost, then the ATC will increase because it's kind of pulling up that average is the idea for that one. And lo and behold, we can actually see that, like here, the fifth unit, the $5 of the marginal cost, is bigger than the average. And that's actually what's causing that average to get pulled back up again, is once this marginal cost kind of crosses through that minimum point, now the additional unit costs more, and that's why it's bending that curve upward. All right, let's take a look at part 2. Question 2, draw a correctly labeled graph of MC, ATC, AVC, and label the AFC. Way easier problem, way faster. We're going to knock this one out lickety split. There's our marginal cost curve. We know that's the firm's supply curve. Then we're going to label an ATC. It's going to come down. I take my pen off and then come back up again, ATC, and then come down. That same idea with AVC, and then come back up again, AVC, and we got to label the AFC. We know that from this first problem, AFC plus AVC is ATC, and so we can label that as the vertical distance between these two lines is the AFC. All right, let's take a look at some of these multiple choice practice questions. So from Module 55, the multiple choice questions are as follows. When a firm is making zero output, total cost is just fixed cost. So that's just kind of a definitional concept. So that one is C. Which of the following statements is true? Marginal cost is a change in total cost by one additional unit of output. That is true. Marginal cost is the change in variable cost from one additional unit of output. Also true, because the only kind of cost that's actually going to be changing is the variable. So you could do it using just those variables like we did in the earlier problem. The marginal cost curve must cross the minimum of the ATC. So that would be like saying it has to go through that ATC point, and that is also true. So we're going to say E for this one, all of the above. Now, which of the following is correct? AVC is the change in total cost. No, it's not a change, it's an average. So we're going to rule that one out. Marginal cost equals total cost divided by quantity. No, that one's the ATC. TC over quantity is just average total cost. Average cost curve crosses at the minimum of the marginal cost. That's reversed. It's actually that would be saying like it crosses right here, which is not true. So we're going to rule that one out. The AFC curve slopes upward. No, it's always kind of going to be going down and down and down. So that leaves the last statement, ATC minus the AFC equals the AVC. That is true. So our correct answer here is E. The slope of the total cost curve, that's the rate of change of that total cost. So we would say that's the additional cost or the marginal cost. So that's E. For this next one, boy, we got a lot of E's. On the basis of the data in the table, what's the marginal cost of the third unit? And so we can calculate it in two different ways. We could say from here to here or from here to here, it's going to be the same value, 40. When we go from 90 to 130 or 50 to 90, that's still 40. And so the correct answer here is A. All right, so hopefully this helps you understanding costs and doing a little bit of practice with those. I'll see you next time.